Hi, we're back today and we're going to be talking about how to make soup at a thing called mirepoix. So let me go ahead and get started. In your culinary kit, you would have gotten you should have gotten an onion, a carrot, and celery. If you got more carrots, go ahead and only use one for this because you could use the rest next week for the what we're doing next week with vegetables. If you got your if your celery leaves a little bit limpy or whatever, that really isn't going to be a problem today because we're going to be turning this into soup. If, however, you ever have vegetables that are like getting soft or that you're concerned about, all you need to do is to take cold water and soak them in cold water, and they'll actually absorb the water and crisp back up. Or what you can do is like what we're doing today is we're going to be cooking them. So because we're cooking them, they're going to rehydrate, but also this is the stock for a soup. This is how to make a soup broth. So by doing that, you're not actually going to be eating these vegetables. You're just using for their nutrients and their flavor. So let's go ahead and get started with cutting up what you need. As I mentioned in my little first part, we're making what's called mirepoix. Mirepoix means that we are going to use 1/4 of our mixture is going to be carrots, a fourth is going to be our celery, and half is going to be our onion. It's a standard mixture of vegetables that's used for almost all European stocks. What I did just there is I just wiped off the carrot. You don't have to peel it today because we're putting it into soups. If I'm making carrots for myself, I leave the peel on. If I'm making it for like something very special, I might, but there actually is a lot of flavor in a carrot, and there's also a lot of fiber and nutrients, so I'm going to use that. We haven't talked about how to cut with a knife before, so let me explain very quickly. When you have a chef's knife or a larger knife, you always grab the blade as if you're going to pinch it, so your hands are pinching it in the side. You tuck your fingers back, and then on my offhand, I'm going to keep my thumb back because that's the most likely thing to get cut. So what I want to do is I'm going to hold this, and this knife is just going to go up and down like a paper cutter. And then what I do is I take this hand and I'm feeding my carrot through so that I can just make it so it just goes through like a little, like I said, like a little assembly line thing. And then please, as you're working on this, please be careful. Also, I wanted to point out that this particular cutting board that I'm using has these rubber things on the side. If you are using a cutting board and it slips at all, please get a dampened towel or a dampened paper towel, put it underneath, and that will keep it more stable for you. So this is my cuts of my carrots. So I've got those all ready to go. Now I'm going to go with my celery. I'm only going to cut off the very, very end. I've become very aware, but I'm going to do the same procedure where I'm just rocking this up and down, and I'm just pushing this through. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to eat these pieces, although I could. I mean, they're looking fine at this moment. And I'm just going to cut them all the way through until I get to the very end. So that between all of that carrot and all that celery, I've only got this little tiny piece that I'm not using. The reason I think it's really important that we conserve our vegetables is when we waste 40% of our food in the United States from the time it's made until the time we compost it or throw it away, that's a lot of food. So that means if I'm wasting food, somebody else might be going hungry. I don't like that idea. So I try to use as much as I can, recycle, revitalize, use things before they go bad. Just try to take care of it that way. So the next thing we're going to do is an onion. Onions are really cool because you'll notice that they have these lines in them, and it's almost like it's a cutting mark, so that way I can see where to cut my onion. Also, the reason a lot of people don't like to cut onions is because it makes them cry. So I'm going to give you a couple hints about that. First of all, please notice that this is the stem end of the onion, and this is the root end. This is a bulb vegetable. So before I go any further, please listen carefully. This is going to sound confusing, but we'll talk about it. All fruits are vegetables. Some vegetables are fruit. What I mean by that is that anything that we eat that comes from a plant is a vegetable. So this is a bulb vegetable because it's the bulb that goes under the ground and then it would sprout up here. Carrots are root vegetables. Celery are stock vegetables. So they all come from the different plants. So fruits actually their job is to take the seed and carry it down to the ground and help produce more plants. So by saying that, because fruits grow on a plant, we can always say that they're vegetables. we can't always say that every vegetable is a fruit, because like this, what I'm cutting right now, is definitely not a fruit. There are no seeds in this onion. So what I did right now is I'm going to take those lines that I have, and I'm going to cut it halfway. I'm going to sort of poke it in so that my knife, it's not going to roll on me. And then I'm going to cut it from stem to root. So right now I'm just cutting it from top to bottom. Please be very careful when you do that, because it is rolly. Whenever we have a vegetable that's round, whenever possible, the very first thing we're going to do is to cut it in half and then lay it down so it's more stable. So right now it's more stable. For onions, this has another benefit too, because the oils and the juice in the onion that would get into our eyes is now going into the board rather than up into my face. So you're going to take your onion, and the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to please put one of the onions, either wrap it in plastic wrap, stick it in a Ziploc bag, and put that away because you're going to be using that next week for our next lesson. So please refrigerate that. Now it's been cut. It needs to be refrigerated. And I'm now going to peel the onion. The way I peel it is I go to the stem end. I'm not going to do anything to this root end. Okay, that's the last thing that I'm going to deal with, and I'll explain in just a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come about a half an inch or 3/4 of an inch from the top of where the stem is. I'm going to cut that off, and that is going to be thrown away. Then I'm going to reach underneath here, and I'm going to pull off the brown paper. This is called onion paper, and it feels like paper. I peel it right at this point so that way I only have to pull off 1 or 2 pieces right now. I don't have to, if I don't peel it now and I cut my onion, I'm going to have to go back and pull off all those little brown pieces off of all of those onions. So instead of having 1 piece of onion skin, I'd have a whole bunch of little pieces, because I'd just be cutting it up. I don't want to do that. That takes way too long. What I'm going to do now is I am going to make sure my knife is nice and clean. So I just wipe it on my wash rag that just has water on it. I'm going to take those same lines that we talked about earlier, and I'm going to cut it about 3 or 4 times coming around here, going as a spoke. Because this is round, I don't want to go just straight up and down. I want to actually do it as a spoke. By doing that, all of my onion is still attached to my root end, because it all came up from the root to begin with. It's still attached, and that will help it from like squirting all over the place. So I'm going to go ahead and cut, and it's going to be to about within a half an inch of the bottom. And as I said, I'm going at an angle as you would do like a spoke of a wheel. And then I'm just going to cross it halfway across here and halfway across here, and so that all I have is just a little bit left. And I'm holding on. I'm actually using that root as my handle so that I can hold it, and it will stabilize my onion, and I can get by with just have that little tiny bit of onion. Now, this, as I mentioned, makes mirepoix. Mirepoix is the classic example that it has half of it is onion, 1/4 of it is celery, and 1/4 of it is carrots. So that would be my mirepoix ratio right there. Okay. So I'm going to pause for just a second, go next door, and then I'm going to show you how to turn this into the mirepoix, into the base for soup.